You are a disgraced naval mechanic turned cartel pilot, jammed inside a homemade submarine. You are underwater off a jungle coast before dawn with the boat already rattling apart. You are here because they have your family's photos in a waterproof pouch and they promise to make those faces disappear if you fail. You are running a load of bricks and one sealed hard case that matters more than the drugs. Right now, Co-2 is climbing and your crew is one bad breath away from deciding you're the problem. A red emergency bulb strobes like a dying heart. The warning buzzer never stops. You slap the Co-2 scrubber canister and it clanks loose in its bracket. You jam it back in with your forearm and feel the hull shiver as the engine stutters. A cheap compass wobbles on the dash. The depth gauge needle twitches like it's scared. You keep one hand on the improvised helm, the other on the ballast toggle that doesn't always answer. Metal scrapes behind you. Pistol appears under your chin. The crewman's eyes are wild and wet like he's already drowning. You force your voice steady. You tell them the Escort missed the launch window. You tell them you need quiet or everybody dies. Another man points at the oxygen gauge as it drops a notch and then another. The handheld radio spits static, no friendly call sign, no check-in, just the sound of the ocean laughing at you through a broken speaker. The pistol presses harder. You smell oil, sweat, and panic. You see the math on their faces. One bullet is easier than fixing a sinking coffin. You grab the man's wrist and shove the gun down into the narrow gap between pipes. The shot doesn't fire. It just clicks uselessly, swallowed by the buzzer. You lean forward and rip the radio's power lead out of the panel. The static dies. The silence is worse. They shout at you, but you don't argue. You reach for the fuse box and pull the aux line that feeds the spare handset. You make the call without saying it out loud. No one gets to call for a mutiny. You are running this boat yourself now. And if they want you dead, they'll have to do it while the sub stays alive. Earlier, the boatyard smelled like diesel and wet leaves. Generator work lights turned the mangroves into sharp black teeth. You stood ankle-deep in mud, pretending you were just a mechanic again, not a man being leased to a cartel. You ran your fingers along the diesel feed line and felt it immediately. A fresh splice, new clamp marks, someone had touched the one thing you told them not to touch. The handler waited at a folding table with a clipboard that was too clean for this place. He slid a waterproof pouch across the wood. Inside were family photos, edges curled from humidity. Proof of life, proof of leverage. He made you press your thumb into an ink pad, then onto a delivery slip. No signature, just ownership. If this goes wrong, the print makes it your crime forever. A welder nearby didn't look up. He just kept throwing sparks like rain. The handler tapped the sealed hard case sitting beside the bricks. Tamper seal intact, corners reinforced. Too serious for a normal run. He made it clear without raising his voice. The case matters more than the cocaine. The cocaine is noise. The case is power. You hesitated for half a second. The armed guard answered by racking his rifle. Clean sound, simple message. You nodded like a good dog, but you didn't forget the splice. You tucked your own screwdriver into your boot where no one patted you down. You memorized the exact bend in the line, the exact angle of the clamp. You walked to the hatch and listened to the hull creak like it already knew. You climbed in anyway because your choices had already been bought, and because you told yourself you could fix sabotage in the dark if you had to. Sunrise hits the water like a blade. You crack the hatch wheel and lift it just enough to steal air. The first breath tastes clean and cruel. Salt spray slaps your face. The horizon is empty except for one low silhouette far out, supposed to be your escort. You raise the binoculars with shaking hands. The boat is there. It's real. It's moving away. You key the handheld radio and call the code. You call again. Static answers like a dead line. On deck, one crewman clings to the hatch rim, staring so hard his eyes don't blink. His mouth goes pale. He tells you the escort is leaving you to die. Not lost, not late. Leaving, that means you're not cargo, you're cleanup. You watch the silhouette shrink until it's just a bruise on the bright water. The sun climbs and the glare makes everything look innocent. Inside the hatch, the air is already sour. The CO2 scrubber is losing the fight. Your oxygen gauge doesn't care about plans. Waiting on the surface is suicide. Staying near a known lane is worse. You make the decision fast because slow decisions get you killed. You order the hatch sealed. They protest. They want air. They want to wave at anyone, even enemies. You spin the wheel down hard. Metal meets metal. The outside world disappears. You take the sub down immediately. You choose the dangerous submerged route because at least underwater you control who sees you. The hull groans as the pressure builds. Your crew glares at you like you just buried them alive. You keep your eyes on the depth gauge and tell yourself the same lie again. If you can stay hidden long enough, you can still trade your way out. The engine bay is a sweating metal closet. One flickering bulb turns everything into a horror show. You wedge your shoulders between pipes and lift the cover with a grunt. The smell hits first, diesel, sharp and wrong. You find the feed line at the splice. It's pinched and scored like someone attacked it with a file. Fuel dribbles in slow, confident drops like time leaking out. So it wasn't paranoia, it was a plan. A crewman hands you a wrench with trembling fingers. Another just watches the seam where seawater beads and forms a thin, shining line. You don't have parts, you have minutes. You pull your boot knife and cut the damaged section clean. The blade scrapes and sparks against a clamp. Your knuckles get slick with diesel. You rip a rubber hose off the bilge pump and shove it onto the metal fitting. It doesn't want a seat, you force it anyway until your thumbs ache. Hose clamps go on crooked. You tighten them until the screwdriver handle bites into your palm. You prime the line by hand. You whisper a threat at the engine like it can hear you. When you hit the starter, it coughs once, twice. Then it catches, rough and loud. The crewman flinches like the sound might summon death. In this world it can. The seawater line at the rivet seam thickens. Not a flood yet, a promise. You look at the ballast controls and do the ugly math. If you keep riding level, that seam stays underwater and turns into a hole. So you choose a noisier ride, riskier trim, more chance someone hears you. You start shifting ballast manually, fighting the valves that stick, forcing the boat to ride at an angle. The leak climbs just enough to kiss air. Your crew doesn't thank you. They just watch, realizing you can keep them alive. And realizing that means you can also decide when they stop being useful. Condensation drips from the ceiling like the sub is sweating fear. You crawl into the ballast compartment on your elbows. The air is warmer here, stale, heavy. The stuck weight is jammed under a tie-down that never should have been tied this way. You see the sabotage like fingerprints. A crewman stands over you with a pistol held low, trying to look calm. Another braces a flashlight, the beam shaking. You don't ask permission. You slice two ballast tie-down lines. The fibers snap and recoil. The weight lurches free and the entire sub tilts hard. Everybody slams into the walls outside. Tools clatter. Someone curses. The depth gauge needle jumps. The pistol crewman snaps that you're trying to sink them. His voice is loud enough to start a fight. You reach the valve wheel and feel it creeping open on its own like a hand is turning it. You shove a wooden wedge into the gap and hammer it with the heel of your palm until it locks. The tilt eases. Not safe, just less deadly. You crawl back out and grab the pistol before he can decide. You twist his wrist, take the weapon and shove it into a toolbox. You snap the latch shut. You choose authoritarian control because teamwork is a fantasy down here. And because one panic shot can turn a leak into a coffin. They stare at the box like you just stole their last prayer. You keep moving. You keep breathing. You go deeper into the run, knowing you've just made yourself the only thing they can blame. At noon you climb into the conning nook and raise the homemade periscope tube. The world above is a bright, endless mirror. Then you see it, a patrol aircraft far off dragging a slow circle across the horizon. Your stomach tightens. You can't outrun eyes. You pull the radio close and tune to the frequency you were told never to touch. The forbidden channel, the one that means betrayal. Your crew gathers in the doorway, listening without breathing. You key the mic and whisper coordinates from memory. You offer something bigger than drugs. You offer the sealed hard case. In exchange, you ask for safe passage. Mercy, a corridor through the sea. The men behind you recoil like you just opened a hatch to hell. One of them mouths that the cartel will kill their families. He's not wrong. Static crackles, then a voice comes through, calm and amused. The rival contact tells you to prove you have it. You swallow. You feel the weight of every bad choice you've ever made. You climb to the cargo bay and drag the hard case into view. The tamper seal gleams under the headlamp. You angle it toward the tiny camera lens taped to the radio rig. You show the seal. You show the serial mark. You show enough to make it real. In that moment, you become the most valuable liar on the ocean. You also become the most killable. You shut the case and lock it back down, hands shaking. Above you, the aircraft keeps circling. Below you, your crew watches like you just signed all of their death warrants with your own thumbprint. You surface beside an isolated mangrove dock in the afternoon heat. The hatch opens and sunlight punches you in the face. Fresh air feels like stealing. The village is a cluster of rough huts and watching eyes. No uniforms, no radios you can trust, just people who want to survive the day. You climb out dripping, boots hitting the planks with a hollow thud. You toss a cash bundle down first, then a pistol. Not as a gift, as an instruction. You point at fuel drums, you point at your fill port, you make it simple. A fisherman steps forward with hands up, reading your fear and your power. You force him to run a hose from the drums into your sub. Your crewman climbs out behind you, scanning the tree line like enemies grow on branches. He tells you witnesses mean death. He's right, but you're past clean options. A child watches from a doorway, still as a statue. The kid's eyes track the hatch. The kid is memorizing you. You keep your head on a swivel, checking the sky for the patrol plane. Every second on the surface is a flare. Fuel glugs into the port. The smell rises. Your throat dries. You see an old outboard boat tied nearby. You see a battery in it. You see a cheap radio handset. You take both. The villagers flinch like you slapped them. You don't apologize. You can't leave them with tools to call anyone. You also can't leave without a backup. You just turn bystanders into victims. When the fuel finally tops off, you shove the hose away and seal the hatch. As you drop back inside, you feel it in your gut. No matter what happens next, this village is now part of your story, and stories like yours end with ash. You push into the shallow coastal channel at periscope depth. The water is warmer here, dirtier, full of hiding places and sudden sandbars. The aircraft roars overhead like a giant ripping cloth. The sound vibrates through the hull. You kill the engine instantly. The sub goes quiet except for dripping and breathing. You drift, praying your wake is already gone. A text tone pings from the stolen handset. The rival contact is still there, hungry and close. Behind you, a shadow moves fast. A crewman lunges with a knife, eyes empty. He's not trying to win, he's trying to end the uncertainty. You slam his wrist into a metal rib, bone cracks, the knife drops and skitters. You grab zip ties from the tool roll and loop his hands before he can scream again. You cinch them tight and strap him to a ladder rung. He thrashes, the ladder vibrates. The hull echoes it like a drum. He spits and swears he'll tell the cartel you betrayed them. He promises your family will pay. The other crewmen don't help him. They just stare at you like you're already a corpse that hasn't noticed yet. Overhead, the aircraft fades. The silence returns heavier. You reach for the engine switch. Your fingers hesitate. Then your radio crackles. A call sign you recognize, the Escort's code. Finally arriving, your chest tightens because you understand the timing. They waited until you were trapped in shallow water, until you had witnesses, until you had no clean speed to run. You answer with a voice that doesn't sound like yours. You listen as they give you a rendezvous point. You nod even though they can't see you. You restart the engine, and you steer toward the place where rescues don't happen. Dusk turns the water purple. You surface at the rendezvous because refusing is a shorter death. The hatch opens and cold air hits you like a warning. Floodlights explode across your eyes. The escort boat is close enough to smell. Not friendly. Predatory. Masked men board fast. Boots. Gloves. Rifles held like they've done this 1,000 times. They zip tie your crew. They zip tie you. They don't ask questions. They don't check on injuries. They just reduce everyone into manageable shapes. You see more figures on the escort deck. Villagers, bound. Faces you recognize from the dock. They brought them here like evidence. Your stomach drops through your ribs. The leader steps in front of you and demands the hard case with a calm that feels personal, like he already knows how this ends. You watch them haul it up from your sub. They slice the seal just enough to crack it open. Inside, you glimpse stamped pages, columns, names. A hierarchy written down like a map to God. They snap it shut immediately. No lingering, no curiosity, just procedure. They chain the case to a heavy weight. The chain links clink like a countdown. Your crew starts pleading, voices breaking. They beg to be useful. They beg to be forgiven. The leader explains it like a lesson. The ledger was never meant to arrive. It was meant to disappear with you. The drugs were cover. The escort was never an escort. It was a hit team. He looks past you toward the dark line of shoreline where the mangroves hide the village. He nods once. Orders travel without words. Men move. You realize the villagers you used to refuel are not loose ends. They are targets. And you are the man who delivered them to the execution point by trying to save yourself. Night swallows the water. Firelight flickers on the horizon where the shoreline should be dark. The village is burning. The flames make the mangroves look like claws. You kneel on the escort boat deck with zip ties biting your wrists. A deck lamp buzzes overhead. A phone camera light turns your face into a confession. The leader holds a card in front of you. Scripted lines, clean words for a dirty ending. You read them because refusing doesn't save you. It just changes the order of pain. Gunshots crack behind you, short bursts, then single shots. Your crew goes quiet one by one, their bodies hitting the deck with dull final sounds. You keep reading because your mouth is the only part of you they still need. When you finish, the leader gestures toward the hard case. They roll it to the rail, chained to the weight. You watch the case tip and vanish with a splash. Bubbles rise. Then nothing. In that instant, your last leverage is gone. The names sink. The proof sinks. The entire reason you were kept alive sinks. The fire on shore roars louder. You smell smoke even out here. That means the wind is carrying the village away piece by piece. A man loops a rope around your ankles. He threads it through a heavy block. The weight thuds against the deck. You look at the water and you understand something clean and brutal. You didn't just fail a run. You made strangers into witnesses, then into ashes. You made your crew into bargaining chips, then into bodies. And the cartel doesn't forgive mistakes, it erases them. They lift you to the rail. For a second you see the deck light above, shrinking, steady, uncaring. Then they tip you over, the rope bites, the weight pulls, the ocean closes. Your last breath becomes a stream of bubbles rising to the surface. You watch them drift up to where your exit should have been, and you realize the consequence that can't be repaired. No one is coming. Not for you, not for the village, not for the truth that just sank into the dark.